Hi, welcome to Upskill Technologies. At Upskill Technologies, we provide classroom training for Excel, VBA, macros for Excel, Access, MS Office, and project finance modeling. We provide both online and classroom trainings. We also undertake corporate training for any technologies. So, let's see a demo and a few examples on how to write VBA code for Excel. So before you begin to write any code, you would first want to add a new tab on the ribbon that is called Developer tab. So go to File, go to Options, click on Customize ribbon, and you would find Developer tab. So check that and click OK. Right. So now you got the Developer tab. And now, where do we write the code? We write code in Visual Basic Editor. So when you click on Visual Basic, you get a new window, and this is the Visual Basic window. So customize it a little to get few basic options. Go to View, click on Project Explorer, go to View again and Properties window, and let me maximize it and let me arrange this. Right. So this is the VB editor, and if you want to switch back to Excel, click on the Excel icon. So you go to Excel, and then if you want to go back to Visual Basic Editor, just click Visual Basic. Right. So if you see, I have a book 1 with 5 sheets in it. Now, to write a code, I need a module. So module is a place where we write generally most of the codes. So how do I insert a module is click on Insert and choose Module. So if you see, there is a new module called Module 1 which gets added. Double click this, make sure that you are in Module 1, and let's write a small macro. So I say sub macro 1. So sub is a keyword which helps Excel understand that it is a start of a procedure, of a program, or of a macro. So macro 1 is any name that I can choose, and then I open a parenthesis and put a close parenthesis. So I hit enter and Excel will automatically write end sub. So this is the place in between these two lines where we write our code generally. So let's write a small code of displaying a message box. So to display message box, the syntax would be msgb box, and then any message that you would want should be written in quotes. So write welcome to Upskill Technologies. Right, so once you have written this code, it's time to execute it. So to execute this code, put your cursor on any of these 3 lines and hit this green triangle. So when I hit this green triangle, I get a box with the message welcome to Upskill Technologies. This is how you execute a code written in VBA. The same can be executed, run from Excel. Switch back to Excel and click on macros. So it displays all the list of macros that you have. So I have macro 1 that I've just written. I click select that and I click run. So it does the same thing. It gives me a pop-up, a message box with the text that I have written. Okay. So let's switch back to Visual Basic Editor again. Now let's write another code. So this time I would like to use a bit of loops to get the list of sheets, the sheet names as a list here in these cells. So how do we do this? So let me adjust the Visual Basic Editor. Okay. Now I'm gonna use a for loop. I say for I is equal to 1 to sheets dot count, and then cells of I comma 1 is equal to sheets of I dot name and next I. To understand it better, go to view and click on locals window. So there's a small window at the bottom that gets added. This is called a locals window. Okay, so now let's execute this program, but in a different way. Earlier we have seen how we executed the first program was by hitting green single, green symbol, green triangle symbol, and it runs the program at once. Now let's execute this in a debug mode. So what is a debug mode? The debug mode is to execute a program step one line after the other. So I use this by hitting F8. So once I hit F8, the program starts. So it's ready to execute the first line. I hit F8 again. Now it's ready to execute the second one. So I'm using a for loop. So my objective is to list all the sheet names in cell A1, A2, A3 to A5. So I have to choose one sheet at a time and put the sheet name there. And I have to repeat this process 5 times. 5 because I have 5 sheets. So I'm telling Excel to repeat it 5 times by placing this particular syntax sheets.count. Now I have 5 sheets, tomorrow I might have 15, 10, any number. So this part will be dynamic and it will automatically pick up the number of sheets you have and it will repeat the process this many times. So I say I is equal to 1. So I'm holding I is a variable. I'm using it to know how many times Excel has to repeat a particular stuff. So when I execute it, I becomes 1. You can see the value of I changing in the locals window, or you can hover over I and you will see the value of I. So I is now 1. So this statement that I have written cells of I comma 1. Cells of I comma 1 represents the cell in the intersection of row and column. So because I is 1, it can now be read as the first row and first column intersection, which will be cell A1. So in cell A1, what I want to put is the first sheet name. Why? Because I is 1. So when I execute it, it puts the first sheet name, that is summary. And then I say I want to increment I again. So when I hit F8, I becomes 2. You can see that in locals window. And now I say in the second row in the first column put the sheet 2 name. So this goes on until you finish off putting 5 sheet names and end sub. The same can be done by executing it at once by hitting the green triangle. So the alternate way of using run would be F5. F5 does it at one shot, and F8 if you want to see a step after step execution. F8, F8, and go on and on until you finish off the code. So these are the two simple basic examples like how you can automate your stuff in Excel. Let us see some more practicality of using Excel VBA. Look through this. This is some data that I get from internet, and my task is to process this information in a way which is required. Putting the information which is required and deleting those which is not required and adding some cells, formatting in a better way. So the process that I would follow is, let me do it in Excel first and then we'll write the code for it. So I want few cells, let's say first 9 cells to be blank. So I select those and then right click and I click insert. And then I won't need these columns. So I would want to delete this. Once done, I would want to write date here and then insert the date by hitting Control colon. And then if you see the data has zone 1 and zone 2, so I would like to give a cost breakup of 2 zones. So I write zone 1, zone 2, and then I could use a SUMIF formula. sum if of this range where the criteria is this and the sum range is this, right? And then if you see, the text is not visible completely in all the columns, so I would want to select this and make it auto fit, make this row bold, and also freeze the panes so that the heading is always visible if the data gets added at the bottom. So this is something that I do for any Excel sheet that I take from internet. So I would want to automate all this stuff in VBA. So let me undo all this stuff. All right. So here we are. So let us write a code to automate all this stuff, all this process. Sub macro 3, right, or sub format, right. So the first step was to insert few rows. So I'm gonna say rows of 1 to 9 dot insert 1 to 9 dot insert shift is equal to Excel down. So this is the code to add 9 rows on the top. So I'm selecting the 9 rows, and the way I did right click and insert, this code exactly does that. So it select the first 9 rows and then it will move it down so that 9 rows you have a blank space. Next, so let's do that. I mean, you can check this by hitting F5. You see it has done. And now the next step was to write a text date in A1. So to write a value in a cell, we use range in double quotes A1, the cell address, and the value you want to put. So I want a text called date in range A1, so I put range of A1, a value, dot value is equal to text, that is date. And then in the next adjacent cell, I wanted a value that is the actual date. So to put the actual date, I use control colon. So here I will use VBA.date. Right. And then I have deleted columns D to M. So I would use something like this, columns D to M dot entire column dot delete. Once done, I have put zone 1 and zone 2 here. So let me put that range of A3 dot value is equal to zone 1, and range of the next cell, range of A4 dot value is equal to zone 2. And then once zone 1 and zone 2 is put here, I wanted a sum if, right? So I would write a formula. So this should be like this. I mean, this should go away. Delete, and zone 1 and zone 2 to be here. And then I would want a sum if formula here. So let us do that. So I'll say range of B3. So I want a formula in B3. So I say range of B3 dot value is equal to all the formulas that you write in VBA should follow this particular syntax, which would be application dot worksheet function dot sumif, and then you got to give the column where your criteria is. In this particular scenario, it is columns of 3, and then the criteria itself is zone 1, and then the sum range is columns of 4. And in similar way it would be for B4. So I copy that, I change it to B4 and make this to zone 2. Once done, I made row number 10 as bold. So I would say row of 10 dot font dot bold is equal to true to make row number 10 bold. And then what I did was I freezed the range. So I would say range of A11 dot select, and then active window dot freeze panes is equal to true. So pretty that much. So let's see how it works. So to get back to the original sheet, I have a data in another sheet. Let me copy this and put it here. Okay. So let's execute it in debug mode and see what all, if at all, we get any errors. So right, so here we got one. Okay, so it should be rows. Okay, so I say subformat, my macro starts, and then the first step is to insert some blank rows on the top, and then put a value date and insert the actual date, and then delete the unwanted columns, and then put zone 1 in range A3, zone 2 in A4, and then use a sum if formula to get values. Okay, so I need to correct this. It should be columns of 2. So I put columns of 2. I can move this back and execute it again. So I got a value from that, value from this, and then I make the 10th row to be bold, and then I got to select range of A11 to freeze the pane. So I select the range A11 and then I freeze the pane. So after that, if you remember, I have made all the columns auto fit. So I would do cells dot entire column dot auto fit. So when I execute this, there is a freeze panes added, and then okay, so let me execute this again. Range of A11 dot select. Okay, and active sheet dot window freeze pane cells dot entire column dot auto fit and ends up. Yeah, so pretty much this much. So now this is done. So let me clear everything. Also, I think the freeze didn't work properly, so let me remove the freeze, and then let me copy this and paste it here, and let me run it through in a single shot. F5 or run. Bingo. So this is what I wanted, and I get it in a single click. So all the data processed in a single click. You have removed the unwanted columns, you have freeze panes, and you have made it bold, you have made auto fit, everything. So this is the power of VBA code. This was just a basic example to show you how to use VBA practically. And do check on our course details from upskilltechnologies.com at VBA macros for Excel. So it will be a 30-day course, and you will learn all the features to automate every particular feature in Excel. And do contact us on info@Upskill Technologies, or give us a call at 9985130004. Thanks for watching, and thanks.